Good afternoon, my students out there. It's a beautiful day. I hope you're keeping safe. It's Mrs. Helen as usual. Today, we are discussing narrative essay. Like we all know, narrative essay is one of the topics we have under essay. We have the argumentative essay, we have the descriptive essay, we have the expository essay, as well as the narrative essay. So at the end of this topic, it's expected you should be able to at least define a narrative essay very well. You should also be able to tell us the qualities that are expected to be seen in a good narrative essay. You are also expected, most importantly, to know how to write narrative essay because the topic is quite a practical one. So it's more practical than theoretical. So now we're going to answer the question, what is a narrative essay? What is a narrative essay? We have different definitions, as regards to a narrative essay. First and foremost, or the one that is commonly used, is that narrative essay gives an account of an incident or event that has already taken place. A narrative essay gives an account of an incident or event that has already taken place. What are we trying to say? We're saying that a narrative essay deals with an incident or event, or gives an account of an incident that has already taken place. So it's expected that whatever you're narrating, whatever you're telling, has already taken place in the past. And that is why students are advised to narrate with the past tense, because it's assumed that whatever you're writing, whatever you're saying or writing has already taken place. We can also say that narrative essay can be fictional or factual, or the combination of both. What are we saying here? We are saying that narrative essay can be a product of imagination. Maybe that incident did not actually happen in real life, but you can imagine it. That is why we say that narrative essay is a product of imagination. Okay? So you can imagine it, you can imagine your story and produce a good work. But even in the midst of fiction, you're expected to narrate an incident that is of common experience. For example, you don't tell us what is not attainable. You don't tell us what you've seen in the cartoon world, but you make your story real or believable. Then sometimes it can also be factual. Sometimes you can narrate your personal experiences. Personal experience. That is why we say that narrative essay is... Okay, that is why in narrative essay, you can tell your own experience. For example, you can give an account of an eyewitness, maybe an experience that you witnessed, or maybe your own personal experience. You narrate it. It's a narrative essay. Sometimes we combine both fiction and facts in our narration. Let me take novels, for example. In novels, we talk about autobiography, we talk about biography. Then we also talk about all these, we talk about novels itself, we talk about short stories and all that. Sometimes you discover that a writer might combine both fiction and facts when producing a work. Sometimes also, a writer can write something that is purely fictional. It did not happen, but it's just a product of imagination and produce it. So, narrative essay is also part of writing, part of fictional writing. Then we also say that is a form of storytelling. Yes, narrative essay is a form of storytelling. You tell your story, whether it is real or facts or factual, you tell your story. But the most important thing is that making sure you produce a good work. Then we also say, okay, I've said it earlier, that a narrative essay is an account of an eyewitness. For example, you witness an accident, you witness a theft, maybe in the class, at home, or anywhere, or along the road, you witness an accident. You can narrate such an accident because there are some questions in narrative essay that questions that come in that form. They say, give an account as an eyewitness. So you tell us, you give us first-hand information of that incident. I've also said that narrative essay is a product of imagination. So we have known now that narrative essay has to do with giving an account of an incident or event that has already taken place, which can be fictional or factual, or you can combine both to produce a good write-up. Sometimes it can come in the form of storytelling, or sometimes it can be an account of an eyewitness. Whichever way you decide to write it, the most important thing is that remember that for external and internal examinations, questions normally come out for narrative essay. So what matters is what? Knowing the right things to do and doing them rightly. Now we are going to look at qualities of a good narrative essay. Qualities of a good narrative essay. Okay, so what are those things that will make you produce a good work? What are those things you have to consider as you're writing your essay? It's very important. The first and foremost, we know that there must be a topic. There must be a topic. So you can't write a narrative essay without a topic. And we have so many topics that can go for narrative essay. We have a stitch in time saves 9. We have policy. Sorry, honest is the best policy. Sorry. We also have a patient dog eats the fattest bone. We have 2 captains cannot be in a ship. Okay. And so many of them like that. So there must be a topic for you to write on. So without a topic, there is no essay. Then the second one says, number 2, there must be a good interpretation. A good interpretation of the topic given to you. Given to you. Yes. It's very important. There must be a good interpretation of the topic given to you. What am I trying to say? You know that topics for narrative essay come in different forms. Sometimes they come in form of wise sayings. Sometimes they come in form of adage, proverbs. Okay, and sometimes also they come in such a way that it's very easy for you to interpret the question. For example, a junior student can be asked to write how he or she spent his or her last holiday. That one is very clear. Then there are some topics that come in form of, like I said before, proverbs, wise sayings, and adage. So if you don't have a good interpretation of such topics, you make a great mistake, and that's going to affect entirely what you have written. For example, when you have something that says the patient dog is the fattest bone. Okay, let me give you a practical example. Some time ago, some years back, when I was, I taught a class, narrative essay, and I gave them the topic, the assignment. Write a topic that says the patient dog is the fattest bone. A student end up telling me about a particular dog they had, and that dog loved bones, and the mother had to go to the market. The dog was so hungry, and the dog waited patiently. And after a while, the mother returned from the market, cooked the fattest bone for the dog, and the dog ate and was very happy. You see, that is what we are talking about, good interpretation. If you look at this write-up, you can discover that these students had made a very big mistake. And at the end of the day, there will be little or no mark awarded to such a student. That's why I said you have. So in such a case, you have to tell us about somebody that went through a difficult situation, but because the person was able to endure, because the person was able to endure, had patience and all that, the person was able to reap the blessings of patience at the end of it. So you must have a good interpretation of the topic that is given to you for you to be able to write something meaningful. Then we talk about arrangement of essay in different paragraphs. Number 3, the essay must be arranged in different paragraphs. Yes, paragraphing is very important in every form of writing. In every form of writing a student is embarking on, paragraphing is very, very important. You know what, how I always tell you about paragraphing? Leaving a space from the line you have in your notebook or your scripts. You know, you leave a space where you begin your introductory paragraph. Then the other paragraphs must also follow suit. So you arrange your work in different paragraphs. Your points, your ideas must be arranged in different paragraphs for your work to be meaningful. You know, it normally begins with the 3I. We have the introductory paragraph, just like every form of writing. We have the introductory paragraph, where the writer or the student introduces, you know, the topic for writing. For example, if you are writing on it was a bitter experience, but I learned my lesson, that's also another topic for narrative essay. You can tell us that, you can begin with, okay, Fred and I, we are very good friends, you know, right from primary school. Fortunately, we attended the same secondary school, and after our secondary education, we made our papers once, and we get admission into the same university, reading the same course. That is your introductory paragraph. That is, you have given us an idea of what to expect in the writing. Then the other paragraphs we follow, we have other paragraphs. Other paragraphs, which constitutes what we call the middle section. So it is here you give us in details, you explain in details what every other thing you're narrating. Your story, we will have more of your story, the expository, in the other paragraphs or the middle section. And it's expected to be detailed because that is where you have the bulk of the information that the examiner or the reader is expecting from you. Then after that, we have the concluding paragraph. The concluding paragraph, here you have finished, okay, you have finished everything you're writing about, and then you conclude, you summarize, and that is what we have in the concluding paragraph. So normally I tell my students that you expect to have at least between 5-6 good paragraphs, including the introductory and the concluding paragraphs. Once they are well explained, you will have a good score for your stress. Okay, moving further, we have the next point we have is the use of dialogue. That should be number 4. Now, somebody may be wondering, what do we mean by dialogue? Dialogue is a kind of conversation you have among characters. Remember, when you're writing an essay, it's expected that you have characters, people that are involved in the story you're writing about, or people that you're telling their story. Even a situation where you are involved, you are also part of that character. So sometimes you use dialogue. But I always tell my students that in a situation where you don't know how to use dialogue in your essay, please don't bother using it. It's not compulsory. So that you don't make a mess of what you've written. For example, you have Peter said, I saw my teacher on my way back. Okay? Anne replied, really? Did he see you? Okay. So this is a form of dialogue you can see. Really, did he see you? Okay. Did he see you? Okay, so this is a form of dialogue. But because students, I've had a session where a student wrote something that looks like, okay, something that looks like a play or a drama, because I said you are expected to use the dialogue. Please, if you don't know how to use it, don't. But I remember, okay, on my way, okay, on my way back, okay. So in a situation where you don't know how to use it, please don't bother using it so that you don't rubbish your work. Okay, another one is also, like I said before, the language. The writer is expected to use past tense. Number 5. Okay. The use of past tense. Remember, we have different types of past tense. We have the simple past tense and the rest of them. So it's better to use them because, like I said earlier, it's assumed that whatever you are narrating has already taken place. So you narrate in the past, except when you are including dialogue. Remember, in that case, you cannot use the present tense. But remember, I said that the dialogue should be minimal. It should not constitute the whole of what you are writing. The use of the dialogue, the use of the past tense. Then I also talked about, okay, number 6, there should be a chronological arrangement of events and incidents in your writing. There should be a chronological arrangement of events and incidents in your writing. What do you mean by that? One thing must lead to another. You don't write in isolation. For example, there must be when we're talking about composition, we talk about the beginning, we talk about middle, we talk about end. Okay. Though sometimes also, some people might begin with the end and not link us to what's the beginning and all that. But that is usually for experienced writers. But the best thing is what? As a student, let there be a beginning, an introduction. I talked about it before. Then that's your introduction, which is the beginning, should link to the body of the essay. From that body of the essay, which is arranged in different paragraphs, you now do what? That will not lead you to the concluding part of your essay. That is, in literature, we call it storyline. There must be a storyline. In other words, one incident must lead to another, so that the person that is reading your work will be able to understand what you are writing. It's very, very important. Okay, then your conclusion must also have a satisfying end. Don't leave your reader or your examiner. Remember, this is an academic work, and the essence of the writing is for you to get your mark. So don't leave the reader or the examiner in the dark. Such a way that the person begins to wonder, what is this person trying to write? What is this person saying? What is, the end should be clear, just as your beginning should be clear, interesting, and captivating. Your end should also have a satisfying end. For example, if you are saying, it was a bitter experience, but I learned my lesson. At the end, by the time we read to the end, we should be able to know about that bitter experience. Okay? And then we should also be able to know how you were able to learn your lesson from that experience. Is very important. Now, a narrative essay, whether it is real or imaginary, should be believable. Your essay should be believable. Should be believable. Okay, should be believable. And clear. Okay, so what do we mean by that? Whether you're writing a story that is real or product of imagination, your story should be what? Believable, credible, and clear. For example, you don't begin to tell us some of those things we see in the cartoon world where, everything is perfect, nobody dies, things are so good, somebody can just die and begin to move around and all that. For example, there's an example I normally give my students in the class. You have a situation where somebody was in a party and the person was dancing, and they, according to the story, it was a tall, handsome young man. He was dancing, at the party. Then all of a sudden, the fan cut off his head, and he was still dancing. And there were people around him, and all that. Then he now decided to bring out a handkerchief to clean his face, and then he now discovered that the head is no longer there, and then the person slumps and dies. When you hear that kind of story, you just laugh, because it's not that is what is not real, but somebody can create, a believable story from something like this and make people to believe that. Sometimes we watch movies, and such movies may be product of imagination of the writer, the script writer, and the director. But sometimes when we watch them, sometimes we shed tears, sometimes we laugh, sometimes, there's a feeling, there's something we feel as we watch such good movies. So even though we know that some of them might be product of imagination, but the person was able to, write, direct, and produce such a work, and as we are watching them, we feel that it's real. So you can also employ such, technique when you are writing your narrative essay. Then we also say that a narrative essay answer the question, what next? A narrative essay answer the question, what next? That's point number 8. Answer the question. Sorry. What happened next? Okay. Now, for some of you that are literature students, there's something we call suspense in literature. So, suspense is a technique employed by a writer to keep the reader going on. That is what we call what happened next. So, as we move from the introductory paragraph, just like the example I gave you earlier, that can, build your interest or the interest of your reader or your examiner. You want to know what will happen in the next paragraph. So the way you write your second paragraph, when the reader want to know what happened in the next paragraph, and that will make your reader or the person that is assessing your work or your examiner to read to the end. So write in such a way that the reader or the examiner will be asking questions, what happened next? Is an element of suspense. And when you employ it in your writing, it will make your writing believable, interesting, clear, lively, vivid, and all the good things you can think of when you're writing an essay. Okay. Another important aspect is create characters. I mentioned it briefly. Number 9, create characters. Characters, setting, what else? Time. Okay, etc. So these are some of the things you can employ as a writer, to make your work look real. You can create, of course, there must be writers. Sorry, there must be characters. People that you are, giving actions as you're writing it. For example, say when I say Fred and I, we are classmates right from primary school. We have created 2 characters there, Fred and I. And so many other characters that may come in as you're writing then you have settings, places. There must be places of action, and also time. We employ all those things to make our work look real. Okay. So then, for this aspect, finally, we say that narrative essay must be interesting. General features now, interesting. Okay, it must be very clear, exciting. Okay, exciting. It must be okay. It must have climax. There must be climax, and then there's resolution, which is the conclusion we are talking about. I hope you're picking something from what we're saying. Okay. Then we have, briefly, we talk about the language of a narrative essay. Language of a narrative essay. Every form of writing has its own language. So the first one we talked about writing in past tense. Writing in past tense because it's very important. Then we also talked about using suitable words. Suitable words. Remember, you are expected to create pictures or images in the mind of the reader. And the only weapon you have there is just the words you're going to use. So you're expected to use suitable words, sentences, expressions to create images and paint pictures in order to sustain the interest of the reader. Use there's something we call definite point of view. In literature, point of view, we have first person point of view, we have the omniscient point of view, and we have the third person point of view and all that. So the first person point of view is I. Maybe you are writing your story or you're writing another person's story, but you can assume that is your own story by using the first person point of view. That's where you say I. That's where I comes. That is where I comes in. Then where you have more than one person, you can say we. If you're writing another person's story, you can say he, she, they, and the rest of them. Sometimes also you can also write as if you are seeing the actions and activities of every other person's in the book. So using a definite point of view is also very important. Then we talked about dialogue, where you can use it very well. Use dialogue, but remember I told you it's not necessary. Okay. Then avoid excessive colloquial expressions and colloquial expressions. You can use figures of speech. You can use wise sayings, but all this is expected to use sparingly. Remember, punctuation marks are the appropriate use of punctuation marks are very, very important in every form of writing, especially including let me not say especially because they're important in every form of writing. So make sure you punctuate your works very well. Capitalize properly. Know where to use capital letters and where to use small letters so that you produce a good work. So now I'm going to give you a brief assignment. Maybe whenever we resume, God willing, there's going to be a practical work on this. But because of the nature of the topic lessons we are having now, I'm going to give you a brief assignment. Okay. So assignment number 1. Assignment number 1. Define a narrative essay. Okay, number 2. Mention 3 topics. 3 topics for narrative essay. Number 3. Mention 5 major qualities. Those ones you think they are the major qualities. There are so many qualities. Mention the 5 major qualities of a good narrative essay. All right. So that's the end of our lesson for today. Thank you very much for listening. I wish you all the best. Remember, make good use of your time. Don't while away your time. You can read, you can study, you can do other valuable things, other things that can be very valuable to you during this period of lockdown. God bless you.